Tomorrow. Have a great show, brother.
See ya.
Yep.
Breaking news. President Biden is in Austin, Texas tonight. We continue our breaking news coverage. Huge movement on the presidential front and for both presidential candidates. Earlier, Mr. Biden laid out his plan to reform the Supreme Court. Here he is explaining why he believes an overhaul to 1/3 of the Constitution is necessary.
On top of its extreme decisions, the court is mired in a crisis of ethics. These scandals involving the justices have caused public opinion to question the court's fairness and independence.
All right, we'll get to what he proposes and why it will not happen, essentially calling to completely change democracy in order to save it. With that, we welcome you to the fairest show on television. Now, 99 days until the election. There was that song, 99 Red Balloons. We got 99 days to play out. And first tonight, what is Trump's plan? Kamala Harris and team are on the course to have the best political month in history right into the DNC, which is 21 days from now. That takes them through Labor Day and into the debate if their momentum continues. Trump and Republicans do not have a plan right now. They got high on their own supply in the afterglow of the RNC, and for the past week, Democrats have outsmarted them at every turn. They pushed Biden out, put Kamala in about 12 hours, and they have now been laser focused on Trump and his running mate with one word: weird.
Listen to the guy. He's talking about Hannibal Lecter and shocking sharks and just whatever crazy thing pops into his mind.
He's rambling about electrocuting sharks and Hannibal Lecter, even though he is clearly older and stranger than he was when America first got to know him.
Every day, Vance, it comes out, Vance has done something more extreme, more weird, more erratic. Vance seems to be more erratic and more extreme than President Trump.
And there it is. Democrats have all gotten on board the train, and they are all reading from the exact same talking points. This has happened before, of course. Sometimes Democrats own the news cycle, sometimes Republicans do. But never before has a presidential race switched so much in a week, at least since the Trump-Biden debate, either this cycle or last cycle. It happens, but you got to have a plan to fix it. The Vance problem is turning into a crisis because Team Trump has no plan to fix it. Here he is with Megyn Kelly talking about his wife's Indian heritage.
And look, I love my wife so much. I love her because she's who she is. Obviously, she's not a white person, and we've been attacked by some white supremacists over that. But I love Usha. She's such a good mom.
Come up with whatever adjectives you want to describe Vance's response to racist attacks on his wife. Most men would perhaps be a little bit more protective of their wives and tell those attacking their wife what they can do, but to each their own. There was one person missing from that interview, and that was his wife. Doing a solo interview isn't the way you fix the problem of white supremacists attacking your wife. It's also not the way you fix the problem of once calling Kamala Harris and other Democrats childish cat ladies. You sit down with your wife and you do Good Morning America together, a la Bill and Hillary Clinton in 1992. J.D. Vance and Usha have not. And the disciplined Donald Trump that we knew from the past month when he talked about inflation and the border and inflation and the border and crime and inflation and the border, well, he's now going back to his old ways.
If a crazy liberal like Kamala Harris gets in, the American dream is dead. She's a radical left lunatic, the most incompetent, unpopular, and far-left vice president in American history.
I'm running against a low IQ individual, her. I'm not even talking about him, her. I got a low IQ individual.
She was a bum 3 weeks ago. She was a bum.
Trump and Harris face off against each other at the first debate in September, but right now, America is paying attention. The whole race has changed, so America's feelings, their preferences, their emotions about the candidates are changing. everything's fluid right now, and Harris's favorability is up 8 percentage points since Biden left the race. Trump's favorability has fallen 4 points. We begin tonight with Bill O'Reilly, host of the No Spin News, author of the coming book confronting the president's no spin assessments from Washington to Biden. Mr. O, good to see you. Let's look forward. What is Donald Trump's plan to regain the narrative?
I think it's all about the debate now, Leland. There's going to be some trouble at the Democratic convention with the anarchists and pro-Palestinian people. It's going to divert away from the Democratic message in Chicago. I think Republicans are now a little bit on the defensive because the media, predictably, has thrown its weight behind Vice President Harris. All that's predictable. The stuff now is pretty much small ball. I don't know if the cat lady vote is going to come back to the GOP, but I don't know if they're really concerned about that. By the way, that soundbite was, what, 4 years ago, right? The cat lady thing. But it's going to be a mud fest, both sides.
Well, to be fair, right, we're playing, a lot of people, Republicans are playing all sorts of sound bites of Kamala Harris 4 years ago. That's fair game. So what's it matter?
Well, it doesn't matter to me. I don't care what they play. I mean, so what? You don't like cat ladies? Kamala Harris doesn't like the Catholic Church. That's now being recycled around when she asked the Knights of Columbus guy who was up for a judgeship about, how can you rule independently if you're a Catholic Knights of Columbus guy? What I'm trying to say, Leland, and I'll say it slower so you get it, is that this is going to be mud all over the place, all right? But it's the debate that really will matter. So the polling is foolish now. ABC Ipsos poll wasn't likely voters, wasn't registered voters. It was, I guess, people just wandering around. And it was heavily weighted, I understand, from our investigation toward the minority community. And women of color have rallied to Kamala Harris's cause. And that alone has spiked her up 2-3 points. So that's where we are.
All right, so that's where we are. A couple of things, all about the debate. That means it's a month away until Trump gets to be able to even have a chance of resetting things. A lot can bake in a month. But I want to get down to this word weird, right? And this is what they're calling Donald Trump and J.D. Vance. And it comes from the governor of Minnesota. I thought it was sort of a brilliant way of trying to brand someone else. Weird, I feel like, is something you would call Kamala Harris. How is it that the Democrats figured this out and were able to capitalize on it, and Trump seems paralyzed to deal with it?
Are you saying I would call Vice President Harris weird?
It seems as though that's something you might call someone. Yes, it is.
Well, that's ridiculous. I would never call the Vice President of the United States weird. I don't know how big the weird vote is, but I think it's bigger than the cat lady vote. So if you're weird, you might benefit from it. A lot of weirdos walking around, Leland.
Yeah, that's true.
All of this is just nonsense. It's just absolute nonsense. And it's amusing, but most Americans, as we approach August, are on vacation. Don't want to hear about any of this stuff anymore. They're checked out. The press is absolutely in lockstep with the Democratic Party, but we knew that was going to happen. They hate Trump. And we'll just kind of slouch our way, as Judge Bork once said, toward the debate. And the debate, I think, is going to tell the tale. I think it's a closer race because of the skin color factor. I mean, and that's appalling to me. I don't think anybody should be voting for anybody because of the color of their skin. Do you agree with that?
Well, slouching his way did not really work out so well for Judge Bork, right?
No, it was a nice descriptive thing. But do you believe Americans should vote based upon skin color? I don't. I think that's appalling.
No, I couldn't agree more. Look, and Kamala Harris's team is leaning into that. Tomorrow night, we've got the head of white dudes for Harris. You had Karens for Harris, on and on and on. So, right, no, it's clear that they're sort of dividing and conquering through the diversity triangle. The J.D. Vance pick, though, and you make the point that his soundbite about cat ladies was a couple of years ago. And it was said for a reason, because it got a laugh. And there's a certain segment of single young white women who don't want to get married that have turned wildly liberal. We have someone on representing that side a little later in the show. But the J.D. Vance issue is a significant one for Donald Trump, is it not?
No, it's not. People forget about that. Look, and I don't think you should lump in all the single ladies into the Democratic Party. I think that single ladies are able to think for themselves. And what the ones that have become liberal Democrats, what they don't understand is that if the Democrats get power, they're going to tax the cats. There's going to be a paw tax. So you're going to come after your cat and say, hey, we want some money for the cat. I'm being facetious now, Leland, but you pointed out that J.D. Vance said this stuff in a rally, the cat, so he could get a laugh. Trump does that all the time. And then it comes back to haunt them because the media is looking for that gotcha stuff. So my advice to all the candidates would be very precise in your language. You want to make a point, you got to hold up a sign saying, this is satire now. You can't just say stuff anymore because then it takes over the news cycle. Right. We live in a very, very distracted country where many voters, perhaps most, can't be bothered to figure out the issues, can't be bothered to understand what's at stake. My column on BillO'Reilly.com, which I think you've read, is The Stakes. Yep. What is really historically at stake in November. And it's ultra serious stuff that has nothing to do with cat ladies. I'm going to make your point for you. I'm going to make your point for you because I'm going to play a soundbite from Elizabeth Warren about the issues. Oddly enough, 10 minutes, 12 minutes into the broadcast, we'll get to an issue rather than cat ladies. Elizabeth Warren on the Sunday shows talking about what to do with the 10+ million illegal immigrants in America.
I believe we need to create a pathway to citizenship. All of that is a part of what we need to do for comprehensive immigration reform. Kamala Harris will work with Congress and get that done.
There you go.
Yeah, and Kamala Harris also wants to pick up all the health bills for the undocumented people that came here when they shouldn't have. So, I mean, look, if you don't think that's an extreme position, then I don't know what to say to you. That's extreme. America's $35 trillion in debt, and the vice president of the United States is saying, we ought to pay all the health care costs for everybody who snuck in here. That's insane. That's not just radical. And Elizabeth Warren, yay, let's go do that. I mean, so what I'm trying to get across to people is we're getting diverted by cat ladies and weird and all of this stuff. It doesn't matter. What really matters is the two platforms. And then we'll see who's got the stronger argument on the debate stage. And that's where it's going to, that's going to be one of the most important debates. And the Biden-Trump debate was absolutely one of the most important debates in history. This may top it.
Okay, so if you want to come back to the very beginning of the show, which is Trump always says he's the smartest guy, he's the best guy, he's got the best people and the best plans. Shouldn't A, he have expected this, number one, and B, had a plan to deal with it, and C, rather than getting up and doing his usual shtick that was fine when he was 6 or 7 points ahead a month ago, and talk about the things you just said he should talk about, which is the issues, the issues, the issues.
He'd be wise to do that. I'm going to interview J.D. Vance soon, and I will take his measure. And you know what happens when I do one-on-one interviews. And hopefully that will happen in the next week or so. We're talking to his people now. I would have picked the governor of Virginia as my second had I been Trump. Because that man is extremely smart, very measured in how he presents himself. The Trump people need the Commonwealth of Virginia. but Trump felt comfortable with Vance. I'm not going to criticize that pick until after I speak with Vance, because then I can evaluate what he's got. Right now, I'm depending on a biased media to interpret him, and I don't want to do that. That's not fair.
What do you make, and I can't figure it out. Maybe you'd ask him about this, maybe you won't. Won't put words in your mouth. The easiest way to put all of this to bed, the fact that he's got white supremacists coming after his wife, which if white supremacists were going after my wife or anyone was going after my wife, I would have some choice words for them. I wouldn't say, oh, gee, it's just how much I love her. Okay, there would be some very choice words there, which he didn't say, number one. And number two, you sit down with your wife in an interview, and you do it on Good Morning America, and you let people see who you are. Why don't you think he's done that?
I don't know. I don't run their campaigns. That would be wise for Senator Vance and his wife to appear on the morning programs. I don't know who these white supremacists are. Who are they? I don't know. I mean, there's a part of it. Well, there's a part of the MAGA world that all of a sudden loved J.D. Vance for a long time. You want their names or their Twitter accounts? Well, yeah, I don't know. I want names and address. This could be completely fabricated. There's not one shred of evidence that I've seen. Well, that's up to him. But if somebody was threatening his wife because of her skin color, the FBI should be right on it. Is it? Is the FBI on it? I don't know. There's no information here. See, I'm an information guy. Before I'm going to make an opinion on something, I got to see the factual basis for it. Now, I don't doubt there are some loons that don't like Senator Vance's wife, but who cares? But if it's elevated, then it has to be dealt with and it has to be put out. But you're right. If J.D. Vance, his campaign was shrewd, they would absolutely go into a forum where both appeared and spoke about their lives and how they see the country. That would be a big event for them.
Maybe they'll do it on BillO'Reilly.com, the No Spin News. Perfect place.
Maybe they'll do it. Maybe they should do it on NewsNation. You guys got a good morning team.
We would
could do it everywhere.
Yep.
They would do it. They could do it everywhere. Take a couple of mornings out and do a sweep, and that would help. But, you ask me questions about these campaigns. I've been doing this business a long time. Most of the people in campaigns are dunderheads. They don't know anything. They're butt kissers. They're sycophants. That's what they do for a living. Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah? They're Martin Van Buren with Andrew Jackson. Martin Van Buren lip screw about 3 inches when he was vice president.
Bill, we can only go back. We have a rule. We can only go back to the early 1900s on this program, and after that, we got to go to the book. All right, there we go. We'll see you soon, my friend. Thanks
for having me.
Yes, sir. There's the book, Bill O'Reilly Confronting the Presidents. BillO'Reilly.com. Bill, good to see you. Thank you. All right, look back to the 1960s, and America's youth went all in for Democrats. Why young men can't get enough now of Donald Trump, and Joe Biden thinks he can save his legacy by completely changing the Supreme Court. Why he might have a chance.
Enough was enough. And I said, let Trumpomania run wild, brother.
Well, how can we forget that? The Trump campaign has never been shy about making old-fashioned masculinity, some might call it toxic masculinity, up to you, a centerpiece of the MAGA movement. They fully embrace it. Kid Rock, Hulk Hogan, football stars like Lawrence Taylor, Herschel Walker. The appearance of toughness has always been a selling point for Trump. He leans into it. Just today, Jake Paul, YouTube star turned boxer, squared up to Trump and delivered his full-throated endorsement. We need Trump to knock out all his opponents on Election Day to save America from more unnecessary wars, the woke agenda, and preserving freedom of speech. Make sure you exercise your right to vote. The divide among America's youth is now both cultural political and sexual. Young men, by double digits, embrace Donald Trump. Young women vastly, disproportionately favor Kamala Harris. Just one number, for example, 2020, 42% of young men identified as Democrats. Now that's down to 32%. Joining us now, former White House congressional spokesman Harrison Fields, rising sophomore at Swarthmore College, Ellerby Mendez. Nice to see you both. Thank you. I'm sure, Harrison, you will understand. Ladies first. Ellerby, we'll start with you. There's this concept, right, that politics is downstream of culture. And how much of this move by young women to be sort of fiercely democratic is cultural rather than just about political issues?
I would say it's a little bit of both, but if I had to guess, and speaking for myself, I think that a big reason that young women are mostly voting for Democrats is because of abortion and the overturn of Roe v. Wade, and just the general stance on abortion from the Republican Party. I do believe that that is a policy issue, and that is a big reason that women are voting for Democrats. However, there is definitely a cultural aspect. I know that a lot of women feel threatened by former President Trump's language surrounding women prior to his campaign. So some of it is social, while some of it is rooted in policy, which I think is the main reason.
So, Harrison, how much of this is a missed opportunity by the Trump campaign, in that there's young women who it may not be President Trump's policies versus just the overturn of Roe v. Wade, and leaning into the cultural side of men will be men and we're going to beat our chests and everything else, versus being willing to say, yeah, and there's a lot of young women who we'd like to have here who don't necessarily buy into that?
Well, I'd say one thing. President Trump is running a multifaceted campaign, one that isn't just focused on a woman's reproductive right, but it's also focused on a woman's ability to purchase a home, a woman's ability to feel safe when she walks out of her front door into the streets of the inner city because of the immigration crisis, a woman who wants to go to the grocery store and not have to worry about inflation that's been over 20% under the Biden-Harris administration. Yeah. So the Democrats are good at focusing in on one issue, but President Trump and Republicans are focusing on a lot of issues, not just the reproductive ones, that are actually impacting women day in and day out. So fair
enough, Harrison. We can all agree that that did not necessarily work out so well in 2022. That was the argument I kept hearing from Republicans. Democrats zeroed in on Roe v. Wade, and they turned out young women in particular in droves, and it worked for them. So, Ellerby, I think about this maybe in a different sense. And you're Swarthmore, Pennsylvania, where you go to school. But the Democratic Party is doing everything it can to reach out and to have a subset of issues for every single group on the diversity triangle. And then it looks at young white men and says, by the way, it's your fault that all these people aren't doing well. And the only way we're interested in you is if you're there to atone and listen and recognize your privilege. How do Democrats reverse the trend that we're obviously seeing with young white men?
Honestly, I think that that's a really fair point. I think that the target towards diversity can feel threatening to especially white men. But what I have found is that a lot of white men on Swarthmore campus are still Democrats. And I know that that is the minority, as we're talking about, with white men or young men being Democrats. However, I think that for me at least, the more I have learned about the Democratic platform and a lot of the things it stands for, the more I feel as though other people are able to see that putting aside your personal experiences and getting defensive is important for the greater whole and for in the name of what an amazing, diverse country the United States is and lifting up the minority groups.
No, look, Ellerby, you're in the swing state of swing states, right? In Pennsylvania is where this is at. You guys are both slightly different ages. That said, of your friend groups, how many would be willing, and Harrison, we'll start with you, would be willing to marry someone not of the same political persuasion?
I would say 60-40. I think you have a lot of people that can't simply do that. My wife happens to be conservative. That wasn't the first thing that we talked about before we started dating. But we do live in a very polarized world where you don't see a lot of people from opposite political parties dating, let alone marrying.
Yeah, Ellerby, what about you? You got a lot of conservative friends?
Yes, I do. I'm from Charleston. Okay. I'm from Charleston, South Carolina. And South Carolina is a red state.
So you don't have a choice.
Yeah. Yes, and I do. I'm a political science major, and I think a big part of that is just a love for hearing different people's perspectives. But to answer the previous question, I would raise the percentage a little bit. I would say maybe 70-75% of people would not date other political groups from the group, my friend groups and groups of people I'm in. However, it is true that, a lot of young men are conservative. So a lot of the time that does have to be put aside if the dating pool is majority conservative. So I think it is, it happens, it is put aside, but I will say the majority of people like to stay within their same ideology.
That's fascinating, right? That all of a sudden, that for young women, it's sort of they don't have a choice. They may want one in terms of finding a liberal man. This was fascinating. All right, I know both of you guys make it through D.C. For one reason or another. We'd love to have you guys on set. This was a fascinating conversation. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll check in. Kamala Harris is having the best political week of her life. Next, the one vice presidential choice that could make this week, the one person who could make this week last a month. Past 20 minutes, North Carolina Governor Roy Cooper just withdrew his name from the list of possible running mates for Kamala Harris. He was seen by many as a leading contender and could have put North Carolina in play for the Democrats. And that's where we come out to the map. The map, 270 to win, up on your screen there. North Carolina with 16 electoral college votes. Cooper was a Democratic governor in a red state. Josh Shapiro there, the governor of Pennsylvania, 19 electoral college votes in truly a swing state. Journalist Mark Halperin was one of the first to report almost to the hour when President Biden would step down, and has been doing an incredible amount of work on the VP pick and joins us now. Mark, good to see you. I saw that you tweeted out here in the past, now it says 40 seconds, Michael Bennet in the bullpen. That is the Colorado senator. Really? Senator from Colorado over Josh Shapiro, popular governor in a swing state?
Well, good evening. Look, the most important thing, really, the first 20 slots are you got to pick somebody who the public and the press see as qualified to be president. And you got to pick somebody who doesn't cause controversy and distract from the top of the ticket. Every other consideration, including someone who has regional appeal, might help you win a state, creates an alchemy of excitement with the top of the ticket, all that any smart campaign knows must take a back seat. What's happening now, as I understand it, is the initial field of candidates that they were looking at in a very rushed process that normally takes months, that has been telescoped down to weeks. They've all got some issues. They've all got something in their background that is giving people pause. And if you're in the Harris campaign and you think things are going pretty well right now, we're on a good trajectory, you don't want to pick somebody who's going to set you back. You want to pick somebody safe.
Yeah, you make a great point that things are going pretty well, sort of remarkably well. And you think about that this has all been in 1 week. I think reasonable people can agree that the Harris campaign has gotten about as kid glove treatment as you could possibly imagine. That part of that's ratings, part of that's that people are excited, part of that there's probably a lot of journalists who don't like Donald Trump and are excited that there's a real option they can get behind. How long can Harris keep up only being on the teleprompter, not talking really to any meaningful media or do any interviews? New York covers like the Camelot with everybody just giddy at the prospect of Kamala Harris as president.
Well, her boss did it for about 3.5 years, so she's got a pretty good template. And she can create the appearance of being out there by doing friendly interviews. You'll probably get fewer interviews than Entertainment Tonight will with her. And the press now is in rapture. After turning against the Democratic presidential candidate, they now have a presidential candidate they love. They don't want Donald Trump to be president. They don't want to be blamed if Trump wins. And so she's got an opportunity now to ride this And her communication staff is a very skilled group of veterans who understand the media quite well. And I think it's possible that she could get through the 100 days minus a few without ever really confronting the press in a serious way. It's possible.
Yeah, and how much of this is the press, right? That you made a good point, gave Joe Biden a pass for really 3 years. I think we can all agree after the debate, there was this moment in the press of oh my God, we've let this guy get a pass and he could lose. So now we're going to all pile on throwing him out. But do you detect any fear, maybe the best way to say it, inside the Harris campaign of being made to answer for what Kamala Harris knew and when did she know it about Joe Biden?
Well, they've got an answer ready, but they may never have to give it. There may not be a debate. She may never have a press conference. I don't know what the answer is. I just know they say they have one. But look, the whole country saw the decline. So you could say she saw it in secret meetings. You didn't need secret meetings to see it. So she should have been asked to answer this question long before now. She will be asked it. But again, if there's no debate, if she never holds a press conference, if she does soft interviews with what they call friendlies, she may never have to answer. And she might, but she may not. But I'm telling you right now, the story of this week is one of the most incredible, even in the wake of the debate, the efforts to force Joe Biden off, the assassination attempt, the Republican convention. This story of how she took this nomination and in a week has vaulted up in contention. Some of my Republican sources say she's now the front runner. It's remarkable. And it's happened for a lot of reasons, including her skill and the skill of the staff, but in no small part because the media is now back to its natural resting place, which is anti-Trump, pro-Democrat. And that's a huge advantage that she can ride, at least for this month and maybe beyond.
Yeah, you make a great point about this month. We had Bill O'Reilly on. He said, nobody's paying attention through August. And, this month is, sort of, a giveaway for Donald Trump. This month is the time that so many opinions are being baked in, right? You think all of this time and all of this press through this week, the rollout of the VP, which will give you another week of good press, even if there is maybe something a little bit negative. Then it won't be as negative as J.D. Vance. Then you roll into the convention, 4 choreographed days in Chicago. Maybe there's some protests, maybe there's not. Through Labor Day, you've got the halo of the convention. You get to the debate. I only got a minute left. I wish I had the whole show left to talk to you, but you just said something pretty remarkable. If there's a debate, you're leaving out the possibility that there won't be a debate and she won't pay a price for that.
Well, more likely than not, there will be, but there's no commission on presidential debates. There's no clear agreement about who the host should be. You and I should probably moderate it. That could settle it in a hurry. But short of that agreement, who's the host? When is it? There's just so many questions. And so it's possible that they'll both decide it's in their interest. But I could see both sides saying it's not in their interest. Even if there is a debate, she might do okay. This is not someone who's going to have a lot of tough days answering questions. She might have some, but I don't think there's any chance she'll have a lot. And again, as long as the press is on her side, it's a massive advantage. It's a multi-billion-dollar advantage.
Well, Mark, I'm not in your league in terms of being able to host a debate or cover politics, but we're always better for having you on the show. Your insights, your expertise. We'll talk soon, my friend. Thank you.
Great. Thanks for having me on. Good to see you.
Yeah, pleasure. There are 300,000 Jewish voters in Pennsylvania. The state Joe Biden won by just 80,000. Could Kamala Harris's tough talk on Israel come back to haunt her? Border with Lebanon, where the Middle East is on the brink, literally, of all-out war. We've said that for a while, and this week could be the week. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is promising a massive retaliation for a Hezbollah rocket attack on a soccer field that killed 12 children, some as young as 10. Netanyahu said, quote, "Our response will come and it will be hard. The state of Israel cannot and will not normalize this." U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken is telling Israel, who just got attacked, not by Hamas, but by Hezbollah from the north, the Iranian-backed group, to use restraint.
Every indication is that indeed the rockets were the rocket was from Hezbollah. We don't want to see it spread. That has been one of our goals from day one, from October 7th on.
That has been their stated goal the whole time. probably one of the reasons things continue to escalate. Armed Services Committee member Senator Markwayne Mullins here. Jewish American, plastic surgeon, TV personality Sheila Nazarian is with us as well. Great to see you both on set. Thank you. Senator, you think the American public even makes a distinction between Hamas and Hezbollah?
Probably not, but they need to. I mean, they're both funded by Iran, right? But there is a distinct difference between it. Hamas can only exist with Iran backing. Hezbollah is a little more set in to a state, and they have more room to maneuver. It's actually very dangerous because Hezbollah, being as aggressive as they are right now, does send shockwaves throughout the Middle East. And I don't know if you paid attention today, but Erdogan said that he's open to entering Israel. Now, what does that mean? He didn't define that. But when you say an all-out war, it's not just an all-out Middle East war. If Turkey enters this war, it's an all-out Christian war at this point. And I mean that sincerely, because at some point it becomes the Muslim world against Israel, and we, as Israel's biggest ally, will have to make a decision. And what's unfortunate is I don't believe Biden or Harris has the backbone to stand with Israel like they need to in a major conflict like this.
Donald Trump's been saying as much on the stump. This was him at a private fundraiser. There was some video of it that leaked out. Take a listen.
Give me the bad news. She hates Israel. She hates Israel. How about Schumer? He's become...
Israel never used to be a politicized issue, right? You think about it all the way back into the 90s. AIPAC, which was the Israeli-American Political Affairs Committee, always donated to both sides equally. Now it is politicized. Is that good for Israel?
It's absolutely not good for Israel, and I think the American people need to realize that we're supporting Israel not out of altruism. Israel is a strategic ally. We get intelligence from them. They're the only democracy in the Middle East. This is not a situation where it needs to be politicized, but unfortunately it has become politicized. And we've seen in the last 48 hours, Kamala Harris has not come out with a tweet condemning Hezbollah for killing 12 children on a soccer field. However, she did tweet about Venezuela's elections.
Right, and what's bad about that is you're right. It has become political. When you start looking at what's happening in the Democrat Party, they are carrying down to the far left of the party, to this group in Deerfield, Michigan, that for some reason, is that the new base of the Democrat Party? I mean, because really, if that's a new base, that means the Democrat Party has become an extremist group, because they are 100% supporting Hamas and Hezbollah, which we know are terrorist organizations. That's dangerous for America.
And not just that. I mean, I saw Linda Sarsour on Twitter saying, we did this. Our movement made Kamala Harris not show up to preside over Benjamin Netanyahu.
But it's true.
It's true.
It's 100% true.
In some ways, this becomes more dangerous, right? Because the Israelis, having been there for 4 years, I guess I can speak about this. When the Israelis feel alone, they, by necessity, when you say it's the whole Arab world against them, feel the need to be far more aggressive in their response.
I don't think so. I think that, Israel is the only country that is not allowed to win a war. And the Biden-Harris administration has forced them to fight with one hand tied behind their back. You can retaliate with just a little. Why can't, if we'd have just given the arms that they need, the support that they need,
would have been over in a couple of weeks.
It would have been over in a couple of weeks. So many people's lives would have been saved.
You're right. And I want to go back to what you said. It's not the Arab world. It's this extreme Muslim world.
Exactly.
Like, you're not going to have Jordan get involved in this. You're not going to have UAE get involved in this.
No, that's
you're not
going
to get Saudi Arabia involved in this, right? You got the extreme groups that's backed by Iran that is getting involved in this. Erdogan is an extreme leader. He
President of Turkey. It's good. Very fair point.
I have to also point out, Erdogan is part of NATO. I mean, this is a NATO.
With friends like Erdogan,
right?
He needs enemies.
So
right. We got to run. Thank you very much.
So much.
Good to have you both.
Thank you, sir.
Great to have you both on set.
Yeah.
Thank you. Live pictures of the White House. President Biden returns from his first trip as a truly lame duck. Why his plan to rewrite 1/3 of the Constitution is the thing that matters the least. Air Force One pulling up at Andrews. All right, live pictures of Air Force One in Houston. Today, President Biden gave a major address about radically changing 1/3 of the Constitution. Here he is at the LBJ Library in Texas.
The court's being used to weaponize an extreme and unchecked agenda This decision is a total affront to the basic expectations we have for those who wield the power in this nation, that they are expected to be wholly accountable under the law.
He first wrote about his plan in the Washington Post this morning. 1 week since stepping aside, he's giving speeches at the LBJ Presidential Library and writing op-eds in the Washington Post. It shows you Mr. Biden's complete fall from relevancy. Now he's only useful in giving Democratic senators talking points on the Sunday shows.
We have a Supreme Court that has basically jumped the guardrails and is out there giving power to the president. So we've got a Supreme Court that is actively undermining our democracy.
Because what's happening to the court right now is it's being delegitimized by the kind of politics and partisanship of our era. We need high ethics standards. We need term limits. We need predictability.
The Supreme Court is a morass. First, it's an ethical morass, but it's a morass in even a worse way. This is a MAGA right-wing court.
Kamala Harris dutifully issued a statement saying there's a clear crisis of confidence facing the Supreme Court. As its fairness has been called into question, these popular reforms will help to restore confidence in the court, strengthen our democracy, and ensure no one is above the law. Among them, a constitutional amendment, eliminating immunity for crimes a former president committed, term limits for Supreme Court justices, and a Biden code of conduct. It's laughable. You know Kamala Harris and Democrats love to warn and ring alarm bells about Project 2025. That's the alleged Trump playbook for a second term. That, Project 2025, has even less of a chance of happening than Biden's Supreme Court reforms. It is all completely performative. But there are two larger issues here. One are institutions, the things that will protect us, things that outlive us, the idea of America. Well, Americans with a great deal of confidence in the Supreme Court is at 13%. Ironically, that's the same percentage as those with a great deal of confidence in the presidency. Now, the president is using his last 6 months to tear down our faith in our institutions, our confidence in the very institution, the Supreme Court, that is supposed to protect us from the presidency. But there is something a lot more dangerous happening here. We're going to tell you that tomorrow. Here's Chris.
Hey, everybody. I'm Chris Cuomo. Thank you for the company. I ask you to help me figure something out. If I were to tell you, breaking news, a dozen kids murdered while playing soccer, dozens more injured, some critically, you'd be outraged. I don't have to tell you where or how. It doesn't matter. Harming kids, let alone murdering kids, it's the highest wrong. Doesn't matter